Hello, everybody. It's a beautiful day. It's a good day. Welcome to this corner. This corner is where we share deep insight, where we organize our thoughts to consistently shape our realities. I love leadership as a word is leadership. Leadership. Leadership is something that unconsciously I've been involved all my life. And but you know how ultimately you never know that you are in leadership. But over the years, experiences will help you come from that unconscious state to that conscious state. And honestly, this is how we are going to be able to consistently find ourselves in the world, especially a world where there's so much uncertainty, a world where it's unpredictable, the volatile nature, the VUCA world, where there's so much uncertainty. Everything is changing fast. Um, Theories are changing, ideas are changing, styles are changing, economies are changing, family values are changing, a whole lot. But so, how do we consistently manage these changing life, these unpredictable, this uncertainty? Thanks everybody. Of former thank you. Purity, is good to see you. Miracle, thank you for joining. God's will, thank you for joining. It's going to be amazing for if we have an open heart and shift our perspective completely from what we used to know, and so we can be open today. So we have what we call inherent belief, and most times this inherent belief are an unconscious inner world that had been inherited as a result of observation, or when you have been in an environment for too long and unconsciously you inherited certain belief system, certain ideology, certain way of life, certain culture, and you didn't know that they are operational in you. And now you are in a conflict because there is something within you that is acting against you. So you are pushing all the boundaries, but they are inherited belief system. We call it the inherent belief system. And that is what creates a certain expectations, unconscious, unknowing to you. And they become such a limit, they bring limitation into our space. So we can't find ourselves advancing. We can't find ourselves into that expansion. We can't find ourselves into that place of progress. We can't find ourselves in a elevated place. We can't find ourselves being an overcomer, being on top of our game in our class and all that. Where we find a repeated pattern, a recycling of life, a tendency to repeat event of life, and the more they repeat, then we're expecting to come out of that cycle. It becomes very difficult to advance it, to cross it. We keep circling around that. So what we want to do today is, how do you use wrong to advance your cause? How do you use odds to advance your cause? How do you use things that are against you? Uh, how do you use things that are against you to advance your cause? I mean, I'm always vulnerable when I teach about leadership. Like I said, from childhood, I had, I didn't know unconsciously that I'd been a leader. And I found myself from childhood taking responsibility in my family, very, very young child. How, and I find that it is consistent that it continued to, thank you, no, well, yeah, I mean, so how do you use those cycles where you find yourself, maybe like you find yourself in a relationship and it's almost like you are the one providing everything, you are the one um, being kind, you are the one understanding, you are the one who is making progress, making sure that this thing work. That's where we want to lead as a leader. How do you use pattern to your advantage? How do you use recurring event and lead yourself to an expanded self where you are not um, limited by that reoccurring? And unfortunately, most time we are not great observers. Part of what we're going to do today, about three things we're going to do, how we become observers and how we reestablish our values. We asked about three questions or four that will help us, create this. So going to talk about observation, the power of observed mind. Then we'll talk about how your values, I talk about a lot about values, how they become such a powerful tool to help you expand, to help you navigate, to help you progress, and to help you elevate and become bigger and larger around yourself. But where I am interested is, how do we utilize odds of recycling something that we think that happens, like, how you get into an office, you are the only one who comes early. Other people don't come to work early. You get into a relationship, you are the one making the most sacrifice. You see the other people are not responding. You get into the house, you're the one paying the rent, and consistently you make friends, you're the one buying the drink. Everybody depend on you. That cycle. How do we utilize it to advance and expand? I don't know if anybody share this thought with me. I think it's just almost a recurrent thing, and we are almost in everybody in a path of progress encounter this. If you're not encountering it now, you're going to encounter it as a leader. And sometimes we call these things like, how you tell people, oh, I need to reciprocate. I want people to reciprocate. I've been in that place where all my friends depend on me. I mean, literally. It's really reoccurring because I find myself where those that people come to the house and they are, I mean, literally shopping in the house, and it keep going on. And now, honestly, I realized that it was something that happened to my mom as well too. People were always coming to her kitchen then, even not having much, but uh, it keeps going over there. How do you even utilize maybe failure? You've been failing in part of your life, maybe in relationship, maybe in finance, maybe in leadership, in parenting, and you find yourself you have not made progress because you see the same pattern in and out. First and foremost, I want to establish something. The way we are either light-hearted people or we are heavy heart people. Light-hearted people or heavy heart people. And there are principles of life. And one of the principles I think there are about 12 natural laws. But let's look at number one law, the law of mirroring, the mirror effect. The mirror effect means that it's like you're seeing a mirror. If you do something to the mirror, it goes back to you. If you laugh, the mirror laughs back to you. If you jump, it jumps. If you're sad, it's sad. And this law is a natural law. So if you smile to the world will smile back at you. Some of the things I said, please practice them. And when you practice them, you will realize that the more you are patient enough to practice patience and consistently stay on that, you begin to observe. That's where observation is going to come, and see how your perspective shift, how your thoughts shift, how your belief begin to shift. It all causes a shift in your emotional engagement, and ultimately your expression in terms of your behavior, your conduct begin to shift as well too. So that's why we are going to talk about observation. But where I'm going, are you light-hearted or heavy-hearted? So in the mirror effect, the more you are light-hearted, the more you are more relaxed, the more you are likely going to send light heart into the world. But when you are heavy-hearted, even though when we talk about heavy-hearted, we're not talking about the heart, really, because the heart is light. The heart is expansive. The heart is alive. What happens is that when you say you're heavy-hearted, you are living from your mind, not from your heart. Now, your heart is vast. Listen to this. Your heart is vast. Your heart is expandable. It's massive. It contains everything. It's progressive. It's life itself. That's why I say, guard your heart, for out of it are the issues of life. Your heart is the issue, is the life, is what they call the command center, is the dictator of life, is the designer of life. Now, your mind that is crowded by patterns, by experience, clinging to forms. So in the heart, it's open, it's elastic, it's massive. It can take in. So majority of us doesn't live from our heart. We live from our mind, because our mind are historically wired, experientially induced and fabricated and forged. So that makes us begin to recognize patterns. And when we recognize patterns, we judge it as XYZ, because it is already framed in our mind. So part of what we're going to do today as observation, how do we reframe our mind to align with our heart, to find the lightness, so that we can issue life rather than life issue. So you now see that in the heavy-hearted, which is mind control life, the mind control life, not the heart control life. The mind control life is triggered by external world. And that's why the mind is formed like an ego. It gets into attachment, into clinging. That's why it defends. That's why it wants you to be safe. It's not open. It's so limited. We call it the limited self, or the finite self. It lives in smallness. It lives in closure. It's not expandable. It doesn't like to expand. It likes comfort. So every form of newness in the mind becomes so uncomfortable. So where am I going with all this? Is because if we lay the foundation well as a leader, you begin to patiently know whether you're living from your heart or whether you're living from your mind. And a crowded mind will continue to recycle and produce the same effect. Because you see, a polluted mind cannot smile to patterns. So patterns will engage a heavy-hearted person. Let's, for instance, okay, you have invested money before into a system, and you have anticipated it was going to come up well. It didn't go well. Then you convince yourself you could try again. You did all the analysis and all that, and it happened again. Your mind will register it as bad. It will register it as unprogressive. Anytime such opportunity comes to you again, the mind will be controlled. That's where your fear are triggered. You see, like that's the trigger. So that's the unconscious wound is inside you, because that unconscious wound is in the mind, not in the heart. So the mind is wounded. The mind has been abused. And so now it's now sensitive to external trigger, any similarity. But the problem is, because you have conditioned that your mind to be a slave to what has happened, your mind will now restrict you for further investment. That's how people gave up and said, I've tried this before, it didn't work, so I don't want to try again. I'm not sure this. No matter how they convince you, your mind has been wired already, has been conditioned, has been programmed. So you're now living out of your mind. And majority of life, honestly, is lived out of the mind. And that's why we have fear, and that's why we have irritation. That's why we have, all the complex emotions. Those are the mind when we live out of our mind. But when we begin to live from our heart is so sensitive. It travels fast. It's light. It's a sensor. It has a sensor that can sense. Is energetic, and that energetic, it means that it get into a flow, so it can pick up signals. That's why when you live out of your heart, you become more intuitive. What happens is that you are more calmer, and you're more assured. You have inner conviction. You have inner resilience. You have inner stability. You're not controlling things. You're just inspired. It works with creativity, but you see, the mind works in the controlled world, is consumed. So each time you're triggered by fear, it's because your mind has been consumed. You're like a slave of external world. But don't forget, out of your heart is a creator. So there's this analysis going on, or I read and I've been following up. We call them the dark creators and the light creators. So in the life forces, how creations are done, it's created from one energy to another energy. So let's say I have noticed a pattern in my life, and I'm a dark creator. The first thing that will become is I will dislike. And once dislike comes in, you will see some sort of fear, a sort of apprehension, you're worried. The more you're worried about pattern, the more you influences and reinforce those patterns into creation. And so now it's realized that the more you hate that pattern, the more you're frustrated in that pattern, the more you empower the external reality. So man, you're now living from your mind, not from your heart. But what if you have identified a pattern and you decide to live out of your mind as a leader, now dive into your heart, where there's an expansion, where there's growth, where there's limitless possibility, where there's an enlightenment? What happened? You will see that when a cycle comes in, like for instance, I use myself. I've been in a relationship one or twice, and they never worked. Initially, so now I'm guided. Even when people want to advise you, be careful. If everybody was to be careful, and sometimes I ask them, how can I be careful? Because you see, I know what I'm doing. Do I know what is doing me? So you now begin to watch from your mind now. Oh, what if I try? Oh, you begin to now make comparison. And if there's a little trigger, you withdraw because now you are now controlled by fear, which is external. You lose your internal balance, you lose your internal stability, you lose your internal resilience, you lose your internal peace, you lose your internal tranquility. And that's exactly why we reproduce after those failures. So, Patrick, what are you saying about this? So let's look at it. Let's say cycle continue. You just say, you know what? Yes to this cycle. I'm going to smile on you. Once you say yes, it might look like you're surrendering and become more vulnerable and weak. It is in weakness that transformation take place. Because when you are still in control, there's toughness. And once there's toughness, welcome, 5-star. Thanks for joining us. And once there's toughness, what happened in that toughness, it creates resistance. As the resistance is like a pull together. So you're not in harmony. Once you're not in that harmony, you begin to reinforce those repetition, which is mind control. But when your heart is transformed for an enlightenment comes, I can talk about enlightenment and how it leads to awareness and awakeness, but that's not where I'm going. So when you stop living from your mind and start living from your heart, the first thing it does, you begin to tap into fearlessness. You begin to tap into boldness. You begin to tap into sound mind. You begin to tap into purity. You begin to tap into healthy mind. You begin to tap into like a sound body. So what happens is that when you say yes to that pattern, I've said yes to a pattern that is not working. I've embraced it. I'm vulnerable to it. I'm soft to it. The moment that softness comes in and you are able to smile to that, you will realize that something will trigger. I read something this morning that fascinated me so well. It's something I saw in 34. Yeah. Just for a minute, I read something that I want to read. Yes, message. Well, it talked about radiant. I can't locate it, but I can look. It said those that look upon God for help will radiate joy. They look upon God for help will radiate joy. And now this is where it is as a leader. So I'm practicing it even in my cohort and in my space. When I meet difficult people, those days, and usually when I see them, I would just say, this one is difficult. That pronouncement has conditioned. That means you're living on a conditioned mind. You're living out of experience. You're living out of your mind. So what happens is that you become a slave to that person. Have you noticed that when you come into that space and that person comes in, your energy changes? You are not light any longer. You are a bit heavy. Why are you heavy? You are heavy because you are living out of your mind. It is limited. It shrinks you. It puts you in a small space. It's like enslaving. It's like conditioned. It's programmed. Now, but you have to see this person consistently because you are in the same space. So it means that you are limited. It means that your progress, your expansion, your elevation is deteriorated. It just distorts the ecosystem. You see what I talk about, pattern recognition. So you see, that's why we recycled more. How do I use recycle? So you see, those that look upon God for protection or for blessing radiate joy. That's why we say from the heart, there's light. From the mind, it's heavy. So if you shift your focus from your mind to your heart and expand it a bit, and that expansion is what we call it by light creators. What happened before in the dark creators, which is the utilizing your mind, what it does, it senses danger, it senses obstacle, it senses odd. You just say, hey, this guy is like this. Check your thought patterns at that moment. Your perspective is almost in danger and you are afraid. That is what you are now sending. That's the mirror effect. So you're now sending that in and it will come back same way. So that's what creates cycle, and that's what continuously programmed our mind, and that's where we get the same result. Even though we think that we're shifted or we're making progress, we are slave to that odd. So you now see that a difficult person you meet at home will move you to a difficult person in the office. That difficulty is you meet it in your business. You meet it in your relationship. You will cut across that these things are now intertwined in all your disposition, in all your engagement. So you realize that it's from your mind. And that's the unconscious inherited belief that work against us. And until we put a light on it, which is where the light of the mind, the expansion through intention and diligence, then we begin to crack it and begin to reverse the trend through light heart. I wish somebody can ask the question if just to be sure that we are on the same path. For some of you who are talking, we started by saying, how can we use same pattern of event as a leader to advance, to find growth, to find progress, to find elevation, and to become an overcomer? Patterns find a way to keep us as a slave, because when we don't uncover them, they become an impediment into our life. So, how do I become my best? How do I advance? Is by surrendering. Surrendering makes you, we say that surrendering makes you very weak. What will surrender do to you by saying yes to that person, to that situation? It happens to me. So when I found myself, as a young person, it started from childhood when everybody want to go to farm with my mom, and I will go to farm. Everybody will reject to wash plate. I'll be the one to wash the plate. Everybody will don't want to go for anything. I'll be the one probably cooking and all that. So you find yourself in that cycle. And if you're not careful as you're growing, those patterns, you begin to see it in your relationship. And in that relationship, you realize that you are the one who is always giving. You are the one making sacrifices. You are the one going extra mile. You are the one who will provide. You are the one who will, serve. You are the one who will compromise if there's an argument. Now, you didn't know because how this are going to be work. But you see how from childhood it's been patterned around you. So it's around you. So the reinforcement is because you hate it. Even at some point, I hated it because I can't forget one day everybody was in the house and I gave everybody gift Honestly, I was just looking for who could just give me gift. Yeah, they said thank you, but I was just say, how could I give everybody and not nobody could give me one? Sometimes you ask that question. Now you are beginning to come into awareness. You have been awakened because now it's obvious that you have noticed that this is a pattern. You even get to office. You are the first person who will come to work. Other people will come late, and you see those patterns. In parenting, maybe you are the one giving your children cannot even look at you compassionately, enthusiastically to say, "Oh, mom, you're doing too much." You see yourself always be the one making sacrifices, and sometimes we could be tired. So, what we're saying, how do I utilize this pattern to my advantage to lead myself into betterment? I adapted it. And so when I got this secret, I started implementing it. First of all, I find freedom because really, when you say you're free, is when your desire, when your unhealthy desire and disordered desire, you're free from them. Like for instance, when you're thinking, why is my own like this? Once you use the word, why is my own? Why am I the only one giving? You're already a slave to that pattern. You're already a slave to that pattern. So in reversing this pattern, number 4, the first thing is, it shows that you have been living from like a wounded place. There's something, a wound in your mind, a wound in your inner being. Like there's a torture. And that is a reflection how you're defining it. And so you continue to reinforce it. The more you reinforce it, the more it will amplify itself in other regions, whether it's at work. But yet, there's an advantage, which is where we are moving now. So that mind construction will begin to create burden. So when we say we are burdened, when I want to empty my head, I want to empty my head, I want to run away. They had been there. Those are those conditioning that enslaved you. So what did I do? So one day, as everybody has left, I started crying. So now I love what I call reversal thinking. I love reversal gratitude. I love to see good in odd. I love to see strength in weakness. I love to see opportunity in darkness. I love to turn using my adversity to fuel, to become like a fuel of possibility. I like to construct purpose out of pain. Like the alchemist, alchemist is the where you chemical thing are turned from one stage to another, where you're very so I like to use that reversal gratitude. So one day I now sat myself out and I look at all the people I was doing for. Now I didn't realize that everything that you do in life is a seed. Once you see your effort as stressful, you reinforce stress. But when you begin to reclaim and rename those patterns as opportunity, I say, oh Lord, thank you for the fact that I'm the one you have used as a channel to be a blessing. I'm grateful that I'm on this side. I'm grateful, Lord, that I'm not the one begging. I'm grateful. That reversal gratitude, what it does, like I said, is to soften you. The moment you start that place of weakness and, soft answer turned away wrought with grievous words are things amplified. So the moment you stop using grievous words Yes, please. I think it's open. Just go ahead and connect. Anybody who want to connect, please. Thank you again, Abigail, for coming. Um, yeah, accept. I've accepted you. The moment you reverse the word of definition and transfer that word of definition from state of using you, when the people say people are using you because you are vulnerable, or your partner is using you because you are nice, or you're a good person, or you are a very valuable person, and all that. The moment you stop using the word use, you become soft. And in that soft, there's a transformation. The perception changes. And once the perception changes, the definition changes. Now, the relationship with that pattern will automatically changes. Now, the energy reverses. So we now see the first thing really that keep us in that loop is because we dislike it. And dislike is that creation. And that creation have dark perspective, which is fear, like you abused. In fact, the abuse was basically constructed by your mind. So how do I move it? So become renamed it, just like Job renamed it. And I started using what I call my identity, the multi-dimension, multifaceted identity, where I said, oh, I'm an enricher, for instance. So now I'm enriching them. I have used it in loss, where I find myself losing, and I say I'm reaching. And so my connection, my definition become more expandable, like the expanded self, the richer self, the beautiful self, the beauty, the loftiest self begin to emerge just by redefining that. It will change your language, it will change your perception. Now it's in that vulnerability, that softness, that a whole lot change. It's more like you have a yam, and this yam is in a solid form. At that solid form, it's it's not useful for consumption. And the only way it's going to come is when you have to boil it. And that boiling is what they call the transformation place. And so that's how life is. If there's no transformation within you over a pattern or a cycle, you will be solid. And in that solidity, you remain solid, and it is not useful. And so most of us are in that solid state because our mind has been rigidly constructed and use it like, oh, they are using me, he's using me, I'm the only one providing. So the moment I renamed it, you discover instantly the definition change, the perception change, the thought around it start changing. The Bible says a man thinketh, so he is. So the thought patterns start changing. Oh, I'm an enricher. I have a larger life. So I began to fuel differently. Now, how did it start? Number one, we talked about how the step we're going to use. I said that you are either living a patterned life or you're living a designed life. So let's say from today, you know that you can live out of your mind or you live out of the heart. The heart has the wisdom, is large, is limitless, is the commander of life. It is the place of abundance, it is the infinite place, it's a beautiful place, it's a relaxed, more confident, it's a place of conviction, it's a place of betterment. The mind is almost like enslaved because it's constructed by experiences. So now the way to utilize patterns to your advantage is now become an observer. What does it mean to observe? First of all, you know that when you use a word, you will be the first person that will experience that word. Like, if you say you will hate a situation, if you say that they are using me, if they say that I'm the only one in the circle who is providing, if you say my work is stressful, if you say, all those words, when you begin to observe words, how it aligns, most of because of our reaction, because we react externally rather than respond. Reaction is from the mind. Response is from the heart. The wisdom of the heart. So when you become an observer, what it does, that's how I started. Like when I say something, like I use a word to define something, I would check whether it's a dark creation or is a light creation. Mark that word, light creation or dark creation. Dark creation looks at impossibility. It talks about danger. It talks about limitation. It talks about abuse and all that. But light creation is more like, you know what? I'm more than this. I'm bigger than this. I can handle this. The moment you become a great observer. So there's a story I read, and this lady, there was another colleague of hers who was always triggering her. And when she triggers her, she's upset, her days are ruined. Now, of course, when you are in that state, people will observe and they know your weak point. Now you are presenting weakness, which is what I call dark creation. Now, the more you create it, which is, if you go back to the mirror effect, because that's what you have originated, they will observe it. And each time they want to upset you, what happens is they will utilize that same pattern and they will trigger you. You're living from your mind. You see how it works. So this lady continued, and we'll pray and wish that are transferred. The more you wish, because wish has no action until there's an action within, then you realize that there's an abolishment. The change doesn't come from outside, the change comes from inside. So one day she began to observe the pattern, how the boss and every other person have utilized, because her emotion was an emotion of our boss, which is now what we call dark creation. So she was creating and empowering them to arming them to harm her. So when she began to observe her outburst and the trigger, she realized that she was focusing on them and named it as oppression, and named it as rejection, and named it all over. So that naming was what she was feeling. So you know what she did that day? You know what? I'm reframing this. I've accepted this is who they are. They cannot continue to manipulate nor utilize me. I have understood the pattern, and so now I'm going to rename it. They are building me up for resilience. They are internally awakening my resolute power to be able to say, hey, I cannot be harmed externally. I cannot give them power. Woo! And at that moment, each time something happens, she will observe, her mind will go off. She won't say what. She observed it collapse. Now, she's no longer living from her mind. She was now at the center. That's why we talk about centered life, balanced life. We call it the groundedness. This is an opportunity. That's where people find their ground. Observation brings you to center. And center is where we have a neutral mind, where it's never positive or negative, but it's a utilization of both of them for your own advantage. Wow. This thing sometimes it sounds theoretically, but if you can practice them on small level, how do we do it? This is how I observe. When I go into the bedroom and maybe the heater is not working or on, what usually happens? You can't dive into that cold water. You can't stand it. What you do is that you step with your leg. You start trying with your leg. Then you feel, you observe, you center. It goes to your knee. You splash it to your hand. You get into your body. Then you say, okay, you jump in. So this is the same way we bring about transformation. It's not instant, but it's just an intentional act with a bit of resolution to say, you know what, I'm going to be an observer. Let me see my triggers. When I see my triggers, what do I need to do? You can use a lot of system. It could look like you shift this way, or probably you just fold your hand 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's methods. Some people sing, some people just be silent and they move on. If you are not an observer as a leader, you really can't understand unconscious thoughts or unconscious patterns. So it's when you begin to observe patterns, you begin to now utilize them. So going back to myself, where I saw myself, I was the one giving. Even in relationship, I found it like I was the one always giving, giving or making peace, wondering how do we move from here. Yeah, so I now began to observe, oh, this is why I'm triggering. How did this thing started? And as I'm recalling that, oh, this thing actually started from childhood. So I'm the one reinforcing it. I'm the one who has continuously, because I dislike it, I'm stressed around it. So my language, my perception, my belief system, unfortunately, that's what we call the inherited belief system that create expectation. And that expectation cannot work because what you're sending is from a dark creation, life force, not from a light creation. So when I observe it, I started becoming more observant. And that is the awakening moment. That is a state of centering. That's a state of grounding. That's a state of vulnerability. That's a place where I had become soft. I've accepted it, what they call radical acceptance. And that radical acceptance said, how do I now utilize this as an opportunity to build a better me, to build a stronger me, to reinforce progression rather than retardation? Because once you're stressed, it's like you're losing power and energy. And I'll say, oh, I'm observed. So now being observant doesn't change. What will change is ability to realize and construct your value system. Yeah, I always talk about value system. If you don't have a value system, you need to learn to build. They are guiding philosophy. They are your center place. They are your cocoon. They are your what, your their estimation. They are defined. They are the inspiration. They are the motivation. Everything around value system. I mean, uh, it's really nice how I make a promise and I keep observing, have I fulfilled this promise? And once I hit into my value system, it's the energy, it's almost the fluidity of acting from my value system is so natural, because in that natural state, you find your momentum, you find the power, you find the audacity, you find the grit, you find the expression, because you come alive. Value system makes you come alive. So if you observe without building a set of values, it will be difficult, because you are acting from a place of people's opinion or world standard. your value is your standard of operation. It's your procedure. It's your watcher. It's everything. It's your life place. In fact, if you take decisions, make decisions from your values, you may never regret it. Don't give outside your value. Don't take decisions or make choices by feelings, by your mind. The root center, the center place of your life in your heart, whether you are a believer, whether you're whatever you believe, if you watch it, you get into a club, you see that they have laws that govern them. That's the groundiness. So if anybody's quarreling, they'll bring out the law. I mean, if you're in the office, you have what they call the workers' manual. So if there's anything that happens, you go to the manual. Everybody balances. This is why values are so powerful, because they are your manual, they are your instruction, they are your companion, they are your friend, they are rich. So when you become an observer, you now begin to say, oh, hey, my value is kindness. My value is service. My value is consideration. My value is XYZ. You now see that you just come alive. So now they are not using you. They have now become like raw material to find your expression. That your value is like a chamber of construction, like a factory that designed your thoughts, that designed your choices, and so now these things that you thought was stressful, they come naturally without expectation. It it was empowering, it was liberating, it was such a place of freedom. It was like a place that I've now owned my life. So when I say discover who you are, own your life, and choose how to express it, is the value. So that means this is my worth, this is my this is my estimation, this is who I am. This is what formed my mission, this is what formed my purpose, my service. When you stream it, you will see. In relationship, I've been in relationship really where honestly I foot all the bills and the cycles goes over there. And people, they're making goods, but they're just coming at home. As far as they're concerned, they are good. And you're bitter. Kick them out. You can't kick them out. Ask them to go. You can't ask them to go. But yet you're in that hub, but you're not happy. And everything that comes from there is from dark energy. And I can tell you, if you have people you're living in your house and you are regretting why they are there, it's time to kick them out. Honestly, because you're not helping yourself. Your seed is polluted because it's not from a good place. It's already infected. So now see where if I now convert it, you know why? I'm not kind until I'm kind to the unkind. So they are unkind to me because they are unkind. I've accepted it. They are not using me. But now my value system is sponsoring my actions, it's sponsoring my decision to do kind to them. So those cycles changed and those patterns changed because now they are no longer funded by my mind construction. I'm now at the center of my heart. And what it does, so first of all, an observer, then you establish your value system so that you see your action, whether at work, whether in that relationship, not from what they are doing, but from your value system. And that's exactly what you sow, and that's what's come back to you. May not from them. You realize that you are ever advancing, you're ever expanding, you're ever increasing. I mean, including where people steal from you, maybe in an organization or some sort of things as well too. If you engage it from that trigger, you lose the benefit of that. But when you become observed and understand this cycle and become observant and now sponsor you every action through your value system, what you have done is now there's what I call the timeless light. The timeless light is where you relate to those relationships from no longer from what they call arrested development. You know what arrested development is, where you consider being used. Every time you say they are using me, then you are arrested development. So you're not progressing, you're not expanding. Because now your dark creation is influencing your actions and choices and your disposition. So now what did I do? I get into that timeless light. That timeless light is where I have to shine the light. And that construction say you are the light of the world. And what does that mean? It means consistently. You're not going to allow darkness to flow in, that creation to come over you. You have to use your light creation to continually to influence the situation. That's where the cycle begins to crack, because now you own it. You are aware of it. You are conscious of it. Now the hidden pattern, the hidden inherited belief system has now been transformed to a new system, because you say, if you believe all things are possible because your belief creates your reality, you realize that you have now reframe and reshape and reorganize your belief system. You will see that the stress and the burden begin to shift. It's such a powerful way to utilize cycles and patterns and utilize them through observation, through value system, and through what they call light, timeless light, which is transforming every odd now and bargain it as from the place of light. You realize that your mind is empty. You are in that soft place. You are in that vulnerable place. And you begin to find out that this, what they call universal grace, divine grace, begin to interlock with your mind, and transformation has changed. A new being has come. An expanded self, a heightened person has begun to rise. That's the only way. And I mean, it also applied to, people, relationship where you have emotional vipers, where they are always negative. Once you apply this system, you can now reinvent a new life. You may still be there, but the experience will, you find out that you are an advanced personality, because now you're creating from a light place, not from a dark place. I mean, it's been such a powerful moment for me. I've learned so much just being here. I hope you got one thing this evening. I like to have comments. I like to have feedback on this. I mean, let's make it richer. If you have people who want to lead themselves into a better life, who want to live in such a powerful place where they have liberty, where they own their life, not life owning them, just invite them. It's always a beautiful thing to hang out with you guys here. Thank you for everybody for this 1 hour. Be an observer, create a value system, become a timeless light where your decisions are not fueled through a distorted mind, but a place of beauty, a place of love, a place of grace, and a place of joy. And you will see the transformation and the expansion that you're going to witness. Thank you. Remember to challenge status quo, and we continue to redefine standard and invite people to a higher life. Thank you so much.